Hi friends, it's Terry Gaines. In this video tutorial, I'm going to share 3 cards I created using the Painted Lavender Bundle. It's the Stamp Set and Dies bundle together for a 10% savings. They are going to be available on Stampin' Up's new January through April 2024 mini catalog. This catalog product is available starting January 4th. The stamp set has 11 images. Some of them can be cut out with the dies. The dies have 11 dies. As I mentioned, the dies will cut out some of the images plus some additional decorative images. It coordinates with the designer series paper called the Perennial Lavender. You get 2 each of the 6 double-sided designs. They are 12 by 12 in size, and they coordinate with several of Stampin' Up's exclusive colors. Beautiful prints on one side, and then on the back side there are some background prints. Very versatile for lots of different projects. These are all the colors that they coordinate, and the beauty of this is you can pick whatever color you choose for the designer series paper pattern that you are going to use for your project. I'm going to be using the Gorgeous Grape and the Lost Lagoon cardstock colors for the 3 cards I'm going to be creating. I am using a card sketch for my inspiration. I'm going to do a few modifications to the card sketch. That's the beauty of card sketches. They're a starting point. You can change the layer sizes, you can add more layers, you can use a ribbon or not, that's optional. You can adhere your layers with adhesive or dimensionals. And as I mentioned, it's inspiration for a starting point. I do have the measurements that I'm going to use for the 3 cards available. I also will have a PDF that you can download from my blog. If you found me via YouTube, look in the text portion of the video and you will find a link to that blog post to download the project. So for the first card, I'm just going to use stamps, paper, and ink. So as I mentioned, I have cardstock, is Lost Lagoon for one of them. I have this layer right here is basically the half size of the card base. And I do want to mention the card base can be 8.5 by 5.5 scored and folded at 4 1/4 right and a half, or you can have it 11 by 4 1/4 and have the fold on the top. It's your choice on determining that. So I have my card base, and instead of making my designer series paper 4 1/4 by 5.5, I've cut this 4 by 5 1/4. That way I can get 6 out of my 12 by 12 sheet instead of 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is adhere this, and I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. And the tough part of using beautiful designer series paper that has the beautiful designs on both sides, you have to cover up one of those. But I'm going to use this as a subtle background for this card. So I have this. As I mentioned, I have the measurements, and I've called out this as the card-based designer series paper layer 4 by 5 1/4. And I've done that for all 3 of the cards. My second layer, which is 1 3/4 by 4, that's the size I'm going to cut the designer series paper. And this is the piece I'm going to use that coordinates with this. But I want to put a mat behind this. So I have that cardstock 1/8 of an inch wider and 1/16 of an inch longer. So what I'm going to do is put my adhesive on the designer series paper, and I'm going to put it flush to this edge and have that 1/16 inch border on those 3 sides. Then I'm going to adhere it to my card base. Now with the card sketch, it looks like about the equal spacing on the side and the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to have this edge meet up to the designer series paper. So by doing that, I'm kind of losing out on a little bit of space on the top. So I'm not going to have mine equal. I'm going to have about 1/4 inch there, and that's going to be shorter. And that's the beauty of these. You can create the layers whatever size you want, but this is a starting point. Now the 2 1/4 by 4, that's going to be my cardstock layer. And then I've cut the white smaller. So this is the piece I'm going to stamp on for the first card. So we're going to stamp on that before we adhere it. And then the basic white for the inside, I have that at 3 by 4 1/4. I make that this size because I can get 6 of these per 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock. And it's going to maximize my basic white, but also when I put it on the inside of the card, you're going to have more of your colored card base showing, and that's okay. We've got some beautiful colors, and you can just showcase those a little more. This is for your inside sentiment and your layer. Now, I've got a lot of that work done. All the other 2 cards are done to this point, so I won't be adhering those. I'm going to just show you how I'm going to decorate these. As I mentioned, the first one is stamps, paper, and ink. And for this design, I think this would be a beautiful image to add to it. So I'm going to use this stamp, and I want to get the variation of the colors on that. So I'm going to use Pretty Peacock and Lost Lagoon for my ink pad colors. And I'm going to stamp with the lighter color, which is the Lost Lagoon. So I'm going to stamp on here and get my image, my ink on my stamp image, just tap it so it's just on the surface. Then I'm going to take a sponge dauber, and I'm going to close this one and open up my darker color, which is the Pretty Peacock. Tap some ink in here. Now what I'm going to do is just tap some ink on the stamp. And when you're doing this, when you have a lighter color and you're putting the darker color on, that tends to be the best way to do this. So I've just tapped some ink on here, and it's random, so it's going to have a random print. Now some of this ink is already drying, so you need to reactivate it, get some moisture on there. So I'm just going to breathe on that to get that ink reactivated. And it's always a mystery to see how your images turn out. So I'm going to allow time for the ink to absorb into the paper and relax it. And now I have a variation of that color. And each time it's going to turn out a little bit different. Now what I also want to do is add a butterfly. The butterfly is one stamp, and it's one die that's going to cut out both of the butterflies. I just want to put one butterfly on here. They are spaced far enough apart that you can take your ink pad and you can position it so you are just inking up one butterfly. I'm going to ink up that butterfly, the bigger of the 2 butterflies. Then I'm going to take, and I'm using Highland Heather ink, I'm going to take my Gorgeous Grape, which is the darker color, and then I'm going to take a pencil eraser. This is just going to allow me to bring the ink from the ink pad to the stamp, and I'm just going to outline the butterfly wings a little bit, just tap some more ink on there, and then I'm also going to take just the edge and see if I can get some ink down the center of the butterfly. And if you want, you can add some different stripes in here. And again, just adding some darker color to the lighter color. Reactivate that ink and even pressure. Now you have a little bit of variation to your butterfly. So this is just a way to transfer the ink. Next to my workstation here, I have the Simply Chamois. This is a great way to clean off your eraser and your stamps. And you dampen these, wring out all the water, and then it cleans and dries all at the same time. And it's one sheet. I like to cut mine into quarters. I cut it in half, cut it again, and then I just use one at a time. They will stain up, but they still work when they have stained up ink. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. I'm going to keep it super simple. Now I'm going to adhere this to my Lost Lagoon layer. And I've already shared the measurements on that. I'm going to look for opposite corners and look for equal spacing on all 4 sides. Then I'm going to grab some dimensionals. This is where I mention it's optional. You can attach your projects with adhesive or the dimensionals. I'm going to use dimensionals. I'll grab my Take Your Pick tool. Works great to get all these backings off. And then, oops, I didn't get that one off. There we go. And now for this, when I look at the card sketch, it's about equal spacing on the top and this side, more spacing there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for equal spacing there and place it right here. There is a sentiment. I've pre-stamped this. My sentiments are from the Go-To Greeting Stamp Set. All three of my projects are using that same sentiment stamp set. I'm going to take some adhesive, and what I have is I've stamped this with the pretty peacock ink color on a 1/2-inch strip of paper. Then I have the Lost Lagoon, and I'm going to have this go over like so. Now it's going to be flat on this part and hang over on this side, so I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to take one dimensional, put on the back, put some adhesive across here, and then I'm going to attach this right like so. Let's see, I'm going to leave a little bit more space here to see a little bit of that designer series paper. Now the card sketch has a bow here. It's just kind of off on the designer series or on that layer, so you can omit it, you can add it a different location. I'm going to use some of the linen thread, and I'm going to be doing this for all three of the projects. I pre-made my bow. I have it on a mini glue dot. Now before I take it off, I'm going to push that excess mini glue dot into the knot to kind of put it behind the knot. Pick this up, and I'm going to attach this right here instead of the location. Whoops, let's see. Instead of the location on the card sketch. As I mentioned, the card sketch is just inspiration, and this is going to be my first project with stamps, paper, and ink. So I'm going to set that aside. Now my second project, I'm going to add some punches to the project, and I have this portion already created. And I've used these designer series papers. My measurements are all the same. I have the inside already attached. I'm going to show you how I'm going to stamp this paper to coordinate with this. As I mentioned, I'm going to add punches in. My punch is going to be for the sentiment. I'm going to use the double oval punch. I've already stamped the Gorgeous Grape oval. I pre-stamped on a scrap paper my sentiment. Then I'm going to bring this in here. I like to pre-stamp my sentiment. That way I can punch that out and I get better alignment. So we're going to adhere these two together and they will be ready to attach. Now for the stamping on this, I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to use this stamp, and I'm going to stamp this with the Pretty Peacock. So let's see, where did I put the Pretty Peacock ink pad? Here we go. Now I can tell you already, I've been working with this, and my Pretty Peacock has a lot of ink on it. And when our ink pads are closed, it settles to the top. Now what I want to do is move some of this ink. So I have a plastic spoon. What I'm going to do is just move it temporarily away from the surface of the ink pad. So I just get a softer image, or how can I say that? Not as, I get less ink on my ink pad or on my stamp. Now I can still see I've got quite a bit on there, but that's okay. And I'm tapping it just to get it on the surface. With photopolymer, I put my paper on top of my silicone craft mat just to get a little bit of a cushion. Now I'm going to put this one on first because this one is going to determine my space on the bottom. So I'm going to stamp this first. So we have that. Now the stamp I'm going to ink up with and go next is this one. And as I mentioned, I stamped this first because I looked at the spacing down here. When I actually stamp this one, I'll look at the spacing on the top. And this image, let me bring this in. This image and that image can overlap and it will work out just fine. So how I'm going to get this multiple colored on the top is I'm going to use pencil erasers again. Now, The first thing I'm going to do is stamp with my green because I have all of these little branches in here and stems and leaves. I want those to be green, and I want some of these flowers to be the gorgeous grape. So I'm going to move this ink again. As I mentioned, I have a little bit of surplus ink on here, which is a good thing. I'm going to tap, and now I have this covered with the Pretty Peacock. My pencil eraser is going to do two things. It's going to work to remove the ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the eraser in and remove the ink on the flowers that I want to put a different color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drying that off a little bit on my fingers. So all you do is you go in here and remove the ink. Now it's going to kind of have a watercolor effect and might have a couple spots that have both the gorgeous grape and the pretty pecan, or pretty peacock. Boy, I mixed up two different names there. So bear with me. I'm going to try to get some off right in the center here. So we have a gorgeous grape flower there. So this takes a little bit of time. I got some moisture from my chamois there. So now you can see, hopefully you can see, I've got some green on there, but now I have space to add the gorgeous grape. Now I'm going to bring my gorgeous grape, and I'm going to use the same eraser because I pretty much got all the ink off. If you want, you can grab another pencil eraser and just use that for your different colors. Now what I'm going to do is come in, and now I'm going to transfer the color from my stamp pad to my stamp with the eraser. So the beauty of this pencil eraser, it's multi-purpose. It's going to help you get the ink off, and it's going to help you transfer the ink. Now, this is a little bit of time consuming, and I don't have this portion prepped because basically I want you to see how this is all done. Now you can come back in here and just re-add ink, and that's just going to get a little darker color for all those flowers. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of a blending. Now, because I've been working with this a while, we want to reactivate those ink pigments. So I'm going to just breathe on that. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to work with the top. I'm going to let the two stamps overlap. And each time you do this, you're going to have a different look. And it's kind of a watercolor washed look, but that's okay. And that's going to be my stamped image. I'm 100% okay with that. I've got multiple colors, and each color you use is going to be a little bit different. Now, if you want to do this again, clean this off. So you want to make sure you get everything off and start fresh with a clean stamp. So now what I'm going to do is take this, and we're going to adhere this to our gorgeous grape. I've already mentioned that the cardstock layers are all the same for all three cards. I have this one already layered here. What I am going to do, because I prefer to have these popped up with dimensionals, it's just a personal preference. So I'm going to take the time to quickly add these. Take your pick tool off, or tool to get the backings off. And these dimensionals are wonderful. They're perfect for adhering, and they're really strong, so they work out really good. So now we have this. Now to embellish this, I told you I already have this. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have it hang over a little bit here. So I'm going to put adhesive here, and I'm going to take one dimensional and place that right here. And that's going to overlap right here. And then I'm going to take one of these bows that I created with the linen thread. I'm going to move that adhesive to underneath and pick it up with my take your pick tool. And I'm going to add that one right here. And that's going to be my second card. Now I could have added a butterfly, and that's all optional, but that's card 2. Now card 3, I'm going to add some die cuts to it. And I did a more prep work. I have the basic white pre-textured with the cross-hatch folder, which is part of the Basics 3D. You get 3 different folders. There's a polka dot and then a floral die on that. And then I'm going to stamp on scratch paper and cut out with these dies. So we have some dies here. So what I'm going to do is take this one. So this die, or I'm sorry, this stamp, I want to add 3 different colors to this. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to take my lightest color, and I'm going to use Fresh Freesia for the lightest color. I'm going to ink this up. Just tap it to get the ink on the surface. I'm going to take the next lightest color, which is going to be Highland Heather. I'm going to take a pencil eraser. I'm going to tap in here, and then I'm just going to tap on the stamp. I'm going to just tap all the way down these floral pieces, just randomly stamp. And then I'm going to tap from the bottom up. So I have the light color on the whole stamp. I put some of the medium color. Now I'm going to grab the gorgeous grape. I'm going to clean off my stamp or my pencil eraser. Now you can see the darker colors show up a little bit more. And you can see where this is being added. So this will help you visually see, and my attempt here is to get a variation of 3 different colors randomly on this. So I'm going to close that up, clean off my eraser, and I'm going to reactivate this, stamp on my paper, and I can already tell you I love how that turned out. Look at the variation on that. And then give it time to absorb into the paper. And now I have multiple colors on that floral image. There is a die that you can take and cut that out. And I've done this ahead of time. And my first one didn't turn out, I mean, it turned out different. They're all going to turn out different, but they all are going to work. I also stamped in scratch paper the greenery that I used for the second card down here and cut it out with the die. And then with the Highland Heather cardstock, I have 3 of this die cut out. And then for the sentiment from the Go-To Greetings, I used one of the tags. It's the smallest tag, this style, from the Tailored Made tags. You get several different size tags with that. And I have some linen thread. So let me show you how I'm going to attach this to the card. I am going to take, and I think I can reach some mini, do I have some mini glue dots here? Goodness, I forgot to grab. Here we go. I have some mini glue dots right here. Mini glue dots are, I'm sorry, not mini glue dots, mini dimensionals. They are smaller than the regular dimensionals, and they're going to work great for attaching this. This first mini dimensional, goodness, I'm going to leave some space here because I want to tuck some of the images underneath here. And I'm going to attach 2 of them there, and then you can take a standard and attach it right here. So I'm going to attach this to my project first, get the backings off. Now I'm going to be cautious of where I place this. I'm going to keep it on the white, and I'm going to put it centered from left to right and place that. Now when I place this, I can tuck it underneath. So I actually see that I wish I would have put that dimensional a little bit further down. So I'm going to just take it off. Let's see if can I take that off? And I'm going to leave it on there. We'll be okay. It's just going to hang over the top a little bit more, but that's okay. All right, now before I attach this, what I want to do is attach these pieces. So what I'm going to do for these 3 pieces is take my mini glue dots. Make sure I get all the product called correctly. My videos are unedited. Typically they contain bloopers where I misspeak on product and sometimes, or misspeak on lots of different things. Sometimes I catch myself and sometimes I don't. So for these pieces, I'm putting the mini glue dot. I'm going to have to fold it to get it just behind the image towards the bottom of these images on the back side. I believe I mentioned these are with the Highland Heather cardstock. So I have it down here. I'm going to take my paper snip and cut the bottom portion of these off. And this is where your creativity comes into place. You can change this up, you can duplicate what I'm doing, but now I'm going to just attach them so they're on this image, but that little piece is no longer there. And I'm going to put all three of these right over here. Still shows that pretty variegation with those stamped images. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put some dimensionals in the back. I'll put 3 here. And if you want, you can grab some of these mini ones and put on some of these pieces here. And I think we're okay. It's not going to go anywhere. And we'll take the backings off. Let's see. Now this, as I mentioned, I'm going to tuck this underneath here. The greenery is going to camouflage where I cut all of those die cuts. And we have that. We have one more bow. We're going to take this and attach this right here. And we have our tag. This is going to go right here and it's going to go on this piece. And you know what I'm going to do? I think on my first prototype, I put one here and I double stacked this other side. So I have 2 dimensional stacked at this end and 1 on this end. Take the backings off and then you can place this right like this. And if you want, you can tuck that underneath like so. But now you have a sample using the stamps, paper, ink, and the dies. You have this sample and this sample. As I mentioned, you can change up these colors, use different coordinating cardstock colors, and recreate this. As I also mentioned, I have a PDF you can download. It's going to have a picture of all 3 of these cards, the card sketch, the measurements I shared here, some tips on assembling, and then the product I use showing which card. Card 1, it will have an X on it if I use that product. For card 2, I'll have X in this column, and for card 3. So you can download this from my blog. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I know you're going to love this Painted Lavender Bundle as much as I do. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. If you are looking for some of this product, it will not be listed below my blog and below my YouTube video until January 4th. Then I'll have a direct link on the post so you can get right to the online store for the product. Take care and happy creating. And if you are able to, I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care.